Coming up on this episode, I ask the question, how do you add value to the world? And I'm not going to lie to you, I bounce around on this one, but I think you need to. There are so many different things in this world that people value, that to actually determine what value is, you've either got to oversimplify it to a ridiculous point, or you've got to overcomplicate it. And I guess I do a bit of both here. But it's definitely interesting to think about not only what I value, but what society values, what the greater world values. So spend some time, sit with me, and hey, if you've got some thoughts about this episode and you've got some ideas of what you value and how that impacts your life, drop them below. I'm always interested to hear other people's perspectives. That is the aim of the game after all. So let's go and get into this episode and see, how do you actually add value to this world, and what does it mean to be valuable? What's going on, beautiful people? This is the Perspective Chasers podcast, and I'm your host, John. On this episode, I'm thinking about what is value and how do we add it to the world? Right? As soon as I had this thought, and it's something I've been mulling over for a while, obviously, especially in terms of the podcast. So obviously, I want this to be something that adds value to people's lives and to the world, but how do you do that? Like, really and truly, you have no idea what somebody else is going to find valuable. Straight away, it throws into my head the idea of like making that big effort at Christmas or birthdays to get your kid an amazing present. And they end up spending the whole day playing with the box. Or you stress and stress to get expensive toys and they play with the cheapest one of the bunch. Like, all of these things, we try to assume or guess what people find valuable, what people will enjoy. But more often than not, we're wrong on a lot of instances. Like the old adage of one man's trash is another man's treasure. One man can throw away a piece of scrap metal and another will turn it into a piece of art. Like, there's so many different instances in life where someone else sees value where someone failed to. And how do you put that in a bottle, I guess? Like, I don't know if you can. Like, there's many things that people will find valuable. Look at music. There's multiple genres of music and each have their own fans and people that follow them and propel that genre through time, make variations of it, and what else? Same with movies. Everything kind of has its different niches in that sense. Dif- Different people will find different things valuable. So how do you kind of narrow that market? I mean, I guess you've got to start with yourself. If you're trying to find a market, you've got to narrow that down. And even there, sometimes that's a hard question to ask yourself. Like, what are you interested in? This, even when I throw that question on myself, like the podcast, I love talking about life in all its variabilities. Like, I am just curious. And how the hell do you narrow that field? I don't know. But I'm going to try and I'm going to figure it out along the way, or I'm going to bloody fail along the way. I don't know. Either way, I'm not giving up. But when you're trying to think of the idea of value, what do people value? And to me, I just think everybody's going to value something different, at least on the grand scheme of things. You can narrow it down to different fields, but when you want to pursue the variety of life, like, think about, I mean, we've got like instant translation these days, where you can instantly translate from one language to another in a seamless conversation. That allows for so many more conversations and so many more insights that was ever possible before. So how can we capitalize on that and learn from others' experience? Like, we can't presume that we're going to know what the other side values. And that applies to all around the world. Like, even when you think about doing something for your like partner or a friend or your child, whatever, doing something for somebody other than yourself, how the hell are you going to know what they value? Unless they communicate it to you and tell you, I want this, or this means X to me, or whatever else. How the hell do you know? You're just guessing. So at least to me, all we've got to do is keep bloody guessing until we get it right once. Like, I suppose that ties into Charlotte's Web, but you really do just have to try and try, no? I mean, so many of us are just stumbling through life. You figure different things out along the way. You find different things valuable. You find different people that you talk to, and people just add to your life throughout the way. So, again, I'm terrible at remembering the names of things, but there's a term for how long something can be predicted, and basically, the longer you go out, the less predictability there is. And it's so true with life. Like, there are so many variables and so many instances that can just spin life for God knows what. Like, there are so many instances in life that are unforeseen, and there are so many things that you can do that don't even perceive as valuable. Like the little messages when you check in with that person that don't really talk to many people, or the little hellos to somebody that's walking their dog that may not talk to many people, or whatever it may be. I don't want to just keep going, or. You get the picture. There are so many things that don't even have to be extravagant that you can do that are valuable. And they may not necessarily be valuable to you. Like, I was thinking about the idea of people that have certain skills, especially like people that are handy or whatever else. If you end up in somebody's life that have no handyman skills or no handy woman skills, however you want to say it, if they're not kind of DIY minded in that sense, something that you take for granted, like being able to put up a shelf, take apart a plug, or change a fuse, or this, that, or whatever else, they might be like, oh my God, you're a genius. But to you, it's like, man, I've been doing this since I was a kid. There's nothing to it. Like, there's so many parts of ourselves that we overlook in that sense. And I wonder how many times do we kind of try to overcomplicate the thought of what is valuable that we miss those little things that people do find valuable and do appreciate, which you bring to the party, and they're easily missed by ourselves because we're so close to it. We take, like, it's so easy for us that we take that skill for granted. I, I'm trying to think about other ways that I can kind of phrase it, but that really is the kind of best way I can put it, or at least the simplest way. Like, even if you're okay, cool. If you're emotionally minded and you know how to deal with your emotions or what, and that, and you talk to somebody that is constantly up and down, you can be their anchor and you can bring them down to base level and you can teach them the skills to calm down and sit and process their thoughts one by one instead of getting overwhelmed. To you, that might be second nature to be like, oh, damn, I'm feeling overwhelmed. Let me take a minute, walk off, process my thoughts or whatever else. But to them, they may never have learned that skill in life. So just being able to say to that person, hey, you're right, you just need to sit with yourself and chill for a minute. Breathe, you're still here. Nothing's gonna take you away. Just relax. Because in our minds, we can catastrophize problems so easily. And if you don't have that skill to bring yourself out of it, it's so easy to be overwhelmed. Even if you do have that skill, it's not to say that you're not gonna still trip up. Like, just because you've got breakdown cover, it don't mean you're not gonna spend hours on the side of the road waiting for somebody to help. Like, we have these things in case of, and sometimes we have to use them. So having these tools in all of these various aspects of life, like I think they're easily overlooked, like the personal skills of life. I don't know if this overcomplicates the idea or kind of just takes it that step further, but even when you put the idea into society, like we've been so focused on the kind of industrial age and making everything work and making society move that we seem to have taken our eye off of the a whole thing that makes society, the people. Like, without the people, there is no society. So you have to take care of the people. And I think more often than not, these days, people feel squeezed, people are suffering, people are miserable, at least in the UK. And you could find it all around the world. Like, there are people that are loving life, don't get me wrong. But uh, if you went round and took a poll, I don't like the odds. So actually taking the time to sit down and think, what the hell do the people need? Not the society as a whole, because that is so easy to lose sight of the people. What do the people need? And everyone's going to need something different. Everybody's going to value something different. If we try to presume that we know the value, like the kid with the present, they might just prefer the box. And all of the effort that you put into saving up for the present and hiding it and this that, and everything else, you could have just got them a damn box. It's ask. I mean, I don't know if the kid's even going to know what that they'd have more fun with the box. Suppose that ties into people not knowing what they want in a sense. Like, if you ask me what's going to make me happy, yeah, I'll rattle some things off, but am I going to be right? And even if I'm right, how long is it going to make me happy for? Is that it? Like, if I get the things that I listed off, would I instantly be happy forever? Probably not. How long would it be before I'm like, I take these for granted again. I'm so close to them that I don't even see them for what they are anymore. How often do we do that to people in our lives, to things in our lives, to eat simple luxuries that we all have? Like, I might be wrong with this. I'm going to be somewhat close, I guess. The idea of having a hot shower is a very recent one. It's like 50 years, maybe? Definitely under 100 years old. So, like, there are people that have never had a shower, hot shower indoors, and that feeling of just hot water running over your body that feels absolutely amazing after a long, hard day and your body's aching. Yeah, some of the people that have done the hardest work in the world never got to experience that. Like, you're probably lucky to have a hot bath back in the day, and that was likely once a week or something like that. Like, there's probably people still alive now that could tell you some stories about quality of life. So how much of our quality of life are we taking for granted in that sense? All of the things that we now value were one not long ago, they weren't even a concept in somebody's head. Now, how many people wouldn't be able to live without delivery services or for food, for packages, for handyman services, for this, for that? Like, we rely on so much to survive that I guess it may have contaminated the whole idea of what value is. Because I simplify the idea to like a you and your partner kind of thing. Now, I'm going to use both sides of the fence here so no one can throw shade. If you're a guy and your whole idea is like the traditional woman and you want like dinner on the table when you come home or whatever else, well, that's easily replaced by a delivery service. If you're a woman that wants a man to be able to put up a shelf and do heavy lifting, I know I'm heavily stereotyping here, but hey, then you can get a service for that. Like if you need some form of protection, you could hire a bodyguard for God's sake. Like no matter what kind of area of life, there's almost a surrogate for it these days. So then the value of individual people just gets diminished. So then when you're sitting there trying to think about how the hell do I add value to the world, where the hell do you start? Because an individual's value has been so heavily diminished. I, I think about when you had like small towns of people and there would be a couple of people for each thing. Like the same man that's the town sheriff or police officer or whatever else is the baker and he's the bartender or whatever else. Like people had multiple roles and people felt like they was needed in society. Whereas these days people feel so replaceable. Like more often than not, people are referred to as numbers from like or by some handle. Like you could go to any person, probably around the world, and ask them what their number is, and they'll probably be able to give it to you just as easy as their name. And that is a mad concept, considering we are not numbers. But yet, even as I say that, I bet your number comes to mind. That's bleak. Like and you heavily identify by that. Some people have multiple numbers or whatever, but you know that is you. That's a direct chain to you. That is a place that you identify with, or if people call you by your handle, it's just as strong as your name in many senses. So then does that diminish somebody's name? Like there are parts of the world where people will inherit their family name and it kind of builds part of their name. And I wonder if that's going to kind of get diminished over time. Like there's been people that have said, oh, emojis kind of are style of hieroglyphics. Like they communicate a lot in a simple image. But then how much does that diminish the idea of poetry and language? And it's not to take anything away from the Egyptians. I don't know if they had poetry actually. Um, Maybe an interesting thing to find out. But there's, yeah, I struggle. If you can write a poem with emojis, drop it in the comments below because I'd like to see it. I'd like to see how that reads. I can't picture a poem in hieroglyphics. Again, it's not to say that it's not possible, and to them, each character or each symbol is a word, so it does translate. But in our minds, I guess we conditioned to a certain input. So if you think poetry, you think either spoken or written word. You don't think symbols. But even still, that goes to show the conditioning of our mind. How much do we think is normal? Now, if you would have said to somebody 50 or 100 years ago, even probably 40 years, same kind of thing. Um, if you'd have said to them, we're going to soon be talking in images, little memes and emojis and all of this, they're like, nah, nonsense. No. How's people going to understand that we write down words? But people do that. Like, we thought that, well, we think that hieroglyphics are primitive, but yet we struggle to understand so many of them. And if it wasn't for the Rosetta Stone and that, we would have never deciphered them. So there are so many instances where we think something is primitive or simple. And again, like our values, they get overlooked. And there's far more to them than we first kind of envision. Like, I, it happens so many times through life that we just overlook and overlook and overlook. So what are you overlooking? Are you overlooking the value? Like, I was talking to Dave about with the pod and like what is the pod and da 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 da, where's it going? And I stumbled across the idea of like it's kind of like backwards self-help because obviously I want everybody to improve and I'm trying to improve myself, so I explore that idea as much as possible and I'll just blurt it out and just tell you what's on my mind. But I don't think that cuts it. Like I think, I guess the deeper value is the value of myself, of which I'm willing to find out, good or bad. I'm gonna find out. I've said it time and time again through my life. Like you really do only have one way to find out, and that's to do it. And that's what I try to do. So if I'm trying to add value to my life, how the hell do I do it? I don't know, but I'll try multiple things, and if I figure it out along the way, I'll let you know. How do you add value to the product that you're doing? I don't know, but I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to look out for what works and what doesn't work, and I'm going to be willing to be wrong. Right? Again, if the idea is that the kid ends up playing with the box, are you going to stress so much about what's inside of it next time? Probably not. You'll make sure it's something decent, yeah, but you'll know that they're going to have fun regardless. So now, if you're overly stressing about what your value is, but yet people enjoy your company, they enjoy talking to you, they enjoy what you make or what you do, you've already won the battle, half of it anyway, no? You've just got to tune into what the hell is actually going on and stop overlooking things. Like, I guess that was the kind of thing that I stumbled upon with myself is I'm willing to ask the question. I'm willing to look stupid because I know it's not going to last. For God's sake, I've jumped off of a bus into a lamppost in front of a school bus full of people, and I was a school kid at a time myself. It weren't the best experience, no. But I walked off and life went on. At the time, I thought, oh, this is going to be real embarrassing. But no, eh. People laughed about it, and probably people laughed about it for years later. But life went on. and now I've just put that on the internet. Well done. Um, there are so many instances in life where sitting down and actually asking yourself what you value, you kind of start to see the answer for yourself. Uh, I appreciate people that are willing to be wrong, people that are willing to be honest and open. That's why me and Dave's friendship runs so deep, because even if we don't want to hear it, we'll tell the other one. It doesn't matter, we'll be honest. When you do that, you understand people's intentions far more. They're not looking to please you and make sure you're always happy and la da 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 da. They genuinely want the best for you as a person. Now, there's this thing that we say of like, you might not want to hear this, but you need to hear it. Two very different types of people there. The type of person that just tells you what you want to hear, that's a people pleaser, and they may not have your best intentions at heart because they're thinking about themselves and how they're perceived. They're not telling you something bad because they don't want you to think bad of them. Whereas the person that will tell you how it is, tell you the reality, they're genuinely trying to be there for you. And don't get me wrong, on both ends, there are contaminants. There are people that are just a-holes and will just say vicious things for the sake of it. And there are people that don't know how to not be a people pleaser. So they'll always be overly nice, even if they do have the best of intentions. They may not tell you that you've got broccoli in your teeth or a booger up your nose that everybody can see or whatever else, because they're too polite to be like, sort yourself. But that doesn't, and this is why the kind of, I don't know if there's a word for it. I'm just going to say like societal intelligence. You just got to learn over time. You've got to be willing to be wrong. You've got to, I used to say I could get away with saying anything to somebody, even if it was vicious, because I'd say it with a smile on my face. So more often than not, they know the intention's not malicious. Where if I'd have said the exact same thing with a basic tone and a straight face, you'd have thought I was really trying to be hurtful or be vicious or whatever else. And at the time, that was never my intention. It was just having a laugh. Like I essentially have joke Tourette's that I couldn't stop. My brain will just spit out thoughts, and sometimes I can't catch them, and I'll just insult somebody without meaning to. I try a lot to keep a lid on that, and I guess I've tried so much on that these days or over the years that that blade of my brain's kind of got dull. So now when people insult me, I'm just like, I can't be bothered. Like, I genuinely I haven't got the animosity there. And it's not that I had the animosity there before. It was just, it was always there. I listened to a lot of comedy stuff and a lot of stand up, and I was just quick witted and they was always there on fire. But over the years, it's changed. I've kind of calmed down a little bit. And I don't listen to as much comedy, and I think about life a lot more. And I guess I think about other people a lot more. I, there was a time where I would have said it just for the joke of it, and I'd have had the laugh and moved on. But I suppose I went through a stage of life where I started to think about people more and how it was perceived and how they may feel being the butt of the joke and things like that. And while sometimes you can go tit for tat with people, it's not always welcome in life. So sometimes you've got to dial it back. And again, it comes down to that kind of social intelligence. Like, how much can you read the room? Much can you see what you're saying or what you're doing is resonating with people? Some people are completely socially ignorant. And when you're trying to do something that's of value, you're trying to do it for other people. So if you're trying to do something that is valuable, but you're socially ignorant, you're going to struggle because you're not going to see what people want. You're not going to see what people resonate with. You've got to keep catering that over time. And I don't think there is one fixed recipe. Everybody's going to have their different community. Like one person's idea of, say somebody likes rock and roll and fast cars and this and that, and somebody else likes crochet and rock climbing and mountain biking. Their two ideas of happiness are never going to be the same. So trying to connect or find value is going to be a lot harder if you're trying to get both of those people. You'd have to cast a very wide net to find a common interest between the two. And it's not to say there isn't a common interest. They may both love barbecue. I don't know. But that net would have to be so wide that you're going to catch a lot that you don't want in the kind of interim, I guess. So taking the time to actually think about what do you value? Like, I'm even trying to think about myself as I say it, but it's one of those ones again, it gets complicated real quick because you're trying to delve into other people's minds. And even if you look at scientific studies and everything else, they have a very, in the grand scheme of things, small pool of people. I think the longest scientific study went on for, damn it, I think it was like 70, no, I swear it's like 150 years or something. Again, I've probably got my numbers wrong, but it wasn't anywhere near how long we've been about. So, and society's constantly changing. So now, if a study was completed or started 100, 200 years ago, how much relevance is it going to have now compared to when it started? Like, because 200 years ago, they would have never even had the concept of the internet. So how is that ever going to play a role in any of their data or anything that they was thinking? But yet now, most of people's lives are on the internet. So now how are people going to ever imagine a world without that? How many people would be in absolute disarray if the internet went down tomorrow? Like the amount of things that work off of the internet and various networks that kind of intertwine through it is ridiculous. Most of modern society is based on the internet in some context or another. So to fully remove that, that's going to put everything into a spin. So now, if you could say that at the minute, society's greatest value is the internet and subsequently that idea of connection, yet people feel more disconnected than ever. How the hell do you unpick that? Like these false ideas of connection where you can talk to somebody day in and day out for years, maybe in some cases, but never have actually met the person in real life. You don't actually know that person. And I kind of, I'm toying with the idea of doing like remote guest podcasts at the minute, but at the same time, I do think there's something that you'd lose from only talking to somebody remotely. So it's very different having a conversation with somebody in a room opposed to over a camera. And I mean, I don't have to tell people that these days, but I think you lose something in trying to understand the person. Like in actually having that presence, like without getting too like hooey or whatever else, like we genuinely have energy fields around us. So now unless you can sense somebody's energy, like if you ask somebody a question and they just give off that little bit of awkward energy, you can sense it if you're in the room. But if you're over camera or whatever else, there's that kind of disconnect. And especially when I have like long-winded, deep conversations with people, I'd much rather that be in person. Don't get me wrong, it can happen. Damn it, lost my words. It can happen remotely or whatever else, but at the same time, I just think there's something lost. Like that level of actually connecting with somebody and looking them in the eye and understanding who they are and what they're thinking and just really being able to get a gauge for them, I think it creates a whole different dynamic for a conversation. So that I'm struggling with that, but I do think there's definitely value in it. It's not to say that you lose the whole value of the conversation. There's definitely good conversations to be had remotely. There's plenty of them out there. But I do think you lose that personal connection with the person a bit. But hey, we'll see how it goes over time. Get actually back on top. Trying to find the value in what you're doing, yeah, it can be hard. But at the same time, if you don't try, if you don't fail 1,000 times, you're never going to succeed the 1,000th first. I think it really is that battling stubbornness. How the hell are you meant to know what people want? You could go out and survey them and ask them, but then how many people say one thing and do another? Like, I know I'm guilty of it. We've all done it in our lives. So how many people, even if you surveyed them, are just going to give you what they think they want you to hear? Or even still, if it's a multiple choice, you've already narrowed their option. So trying to actually understand what people value, and even then, you've got people might value something they don't even know exists, or damn it, my words are running out today. They might not even know what they want, for God's sake. So just experimenting. Just be willing to be wrong. Be willing to find out for the better, for the worse. Like, even if what you do doesn't pay off straight away, it's not to say you won't learn something from it and somebody else might not find value from it. Like, there are so many things that you can do that, again, will get taken for granted that you've just got to pay attention. You've got to pay so much attention to how things resonate in the world. Like, if you are doing a project, if you're creating content, if you're building a business, you need to see how it's perceived in the world. You need to ask the questions about it. If you convince yourself that your product is perfect, you'll never see its flaws. Everything has its flaws. All of us have our flaws. Some of us will shake them, some of us won't. But if you're not willing to ask yourself the questions, you'll never even see them. So if you are somebody that's trying to build value, add value into your own life, add value into your business, add value into the world, take the time to ask the questions of yourself and of your product, of whatever it is you're trying to put into the world. Because if you don't, you're going to miss it. You need to ask yourself the hard questions. If you don't, somebody else will. And then you'll be like, you'll begrudge that person, or you'll become bitter. So just be willing to put in the work. It's not always going to be easy. But I guess the value there is the value in being willing to find out, the value in being willing to mess up and be wrong and look stupid or whatever else. How many people have been shunned by much of society that were later proven to be right? Like, the number isn't zero. And I mean, I'm not the person to give you the number. I'm no form of historian, but there are so many people that were convinced of one thing. They put all of their eggs in that basket and they was wrong. And all they needed to do was look in a little bit of a different direction and they would have seen sense. It's like hindsight. Like, as soon as you look back, you're like, oh yeah, of course. But up until that moment that that thing actually happened, you had no... Damn it, lost the words again. I'm gonna have to wrap this up in a sec. You have no real bearing on what is gonna happen. You just have a guess, a possibility. This could happen, that could happen. Until the moment of, it's always going to be a hypothetical. It's always going to be a theory. It's always going to be, I've lost the word, so I'm trying to throw out multiple until I find the one that my head initially wanted. But I'm not going to do that today. My brain needs help. No matter what you're trying to do, there is going to be value in it. So just put in the work, because each of us will see the world through a unique lens, and it means that you'll catch something that somebody else will miss. You've just got to have your eyes open wide enough to see it. And for somebody with my level of eyesight, that is ironic at best. But you've at least got to try, man. Because if you don't, somebody else will, and you're going to live a life that you're not happy with. You're going to live a life that is potentially unfulfilled and definitely not lived to its fullest. And I think that is a sad old story. Like, if you got to the end of your time, to your last breath, and you thought, damn, I could have done more, or I could have tried harder, that's a bit of last thought, no? I know I don't want to be that person. Well, which I'll be very vague about, but let's just say I experienced my own death. And I can't tell you how I know it was my own death, but all I can tell you is, for all intensive purposes, it is as much as I could tell you that if I watched my birth, like, it's, it's as solid as a memory is. Let's just say that. And in this moment, I was on this hospital bed and they was trying to resuscitate me. They was doing the little light thingy over my eye. And I just had this overwhelming feeling that my work was done. That what I had set out to do was complete. And that I had actually achieved what I wanted to do. The world was a better place for it. And I was almost content in my death that it was my time to go. It was my time for the next phase. And that in itself was powerful because having that idea, like I've always had this idea of never fear death. I've got it tattooed around my wrist. I have had it since I was like 18. And I've always mulled over that thought. So to have that experience was very, very valuable. And to think that I could potentially get to the end of my days and have an opposite thought or have the thought that, man, you left a lot of life on the table there. That would bug me. That would really, that would be an annoying last thought. Like, yeah, talk about some unfinished business. That would probably make me a ghost. If that was my last thought, I would have to channel all of my energy into becoming a ghost. I guess that's what they say, they have unfinished business, no? That would be the most annoying damn thought. To be like, you left so much undone. Like, imagine you got to the end of your days and was like, damn it, you never went on a jet ski. You never went in a plane. You never done whatever it may. Like, there are so many experiences to be had in life that to feel that you left things undone in your last moments, that would annoy me to hell. Especially if it was something that you wanted to do. Like, imagine you loved sea life and you got to your last days and you lived a full life. Let's give this some context here. You lived a full life. You lived towards the triple figures. You loved marine life the whole time. You studied them and da 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 da. But you lived in a landlocked city. You never went on a holiday and you never swam with sea life or dolphins or went diving with sharks or whatever. Like, they'd be like, seriously, that was possible? My whole life I loved sea life and I never done that? What the hell was I doing with it? Like, I don't think anybody wants to be that person. That would be so annoying. Yeah. Imagine that getting to your final breath and you found out that the one thing that you dreamt of your entire life was actually possible and you didn't do it. Yeah, that would suck. Yeah. That's a bit of a downer. I don't really want to end the pod on that note. You are valuable. There are going to be so many different things that you do that add value. And if you are struggling to see that, here we'll end with an actual bit of advice for however long I've been rambling and probably not stumbled upon anything meaningful. If you're genuinely trying to figure out how you can add value to the world, ask yourself what you value, and then go around and ask the people closest to you what they value about you, what they value in life, what they think that you will become or what they think you will be capable of. And as always, you've got to be careful who you ask. Some people ain't going to give you the best answer. But again, that's another area of life where you've got to pay attention. You've got to pay attention to who you surround yourself with. Not everybody is going to be the person that's meant to walk with you through life. And sometimes that's a hard thing to swallow. Sometimes it's a hard realization to have. But not everybody is meant to be. Some people are a blessing, some people are a lesson. That's just life. Damn it, another downer note. I want to end on a positive. But there are going to be multiple things that people value about you. There are going to be so many ways in which you can add value to the world, to life. You just have to be willing to look. And that willingness to look in itself is probably the most valuable thing of all. Like, having that willingness to ask questions, whether they be for the better or for the worse, you'll at least find out on the other end. That willingness to find out if something's going to work or if something's going to fail, that is a superpower. So if you've got that, freaking hold on to it. Be grateful for it and channel it as much as you can. Nurture it and build it up and share it with the world. And if you haven't got that, then aim for it. Figure out what you do that is valuable. Figure out what you value. Figure out what the people that you value around you. Like, actually tune into people. I think we're so distracted through society, through life. Life is so busy and hustle and bustle, and for God's sake, every minute of the day there is some new content out, some new film released, a new series gone live, whatever else, new music out, new games released. There's constant distractions to bombard us in life. So if you're managing to tune in and actually see what's going on in the world, pat yourself on the damn back. It's a slow road. We all get distracted at times. Sometimes the distraction is needed. But if you're putting in that effort to be better, to add value into the world, be grateful for yourself and keep trying, because you will get there. All right, that's a bit more of a positive note. So, the seed for this episode is going to be try get a no in life. Try get more than one. Try to decondition yourself from that kind of idea that a no is a negative, because it's not. It's a point to learn, and the more you kind of demystify it, the more you kind of deal with that fear of, oh, if I get rejected, or if I get a no, or if this doesn't happen, or if that doesn't happen. Guess what? If it doesn't happen, life still goes on. There's another opportunity or wherever else. There are very few circumstances in which saying no genuinely is life or death. So be willing to get a no. Be willing to say no. And learn from the experiences that you have as a result of it. Because there will be a lot more that you learn from saying no to people than you learn from saying yes. And that's not to say don't say yes to life. By all means, go out and have the experiences. But you have to do both. Say yes and say no. And learn when to do either. Because sometimes in life you should say no when we say yes. And you should say yes when we say no. So figure it out. Take some time and actually put some thought into these decisions. Because this is your life. And if you don't value it, why should anybody else? All the best. I'll catch you on the next one.